Lap 327. 74 laps to go. The Cookout 400 at Martinsville Speedway is reaching its boiling point. The field stacks up for a restart, drivers are fighting for every inch of track position, and in a matter of seconds, one decision turns a competitive race day into a disaster. Bubba Wallace drives the number 23-2311 Racing Toyota directly into the back of Carson Hocevar's number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet, not once, but twice. Hocevar spins. 12 cars get collected. And Wallace's day ends on the record with a 36th place finish, the worst result of his 2026 season. That is what happened on the track. But the bigger story is what happens next. Before that restart, Hocevar made an aggressive 3-wide move, going underneath Wallace into the corner. It was the kind of move that is not illegal in NASCAR but is widely understood to be pushing the limits. Wallace did not forget it. One lap later, entering turn 3, Wallace rammed the backside of Hocevar's car. The initial contact did not send Hocevar around immediately. But a stack up ahead of Hocevar resulted in Wallace hitting the number 77 again, and that second hit was enough to spin Hocevar fully sideways. What followed was a chain reaction that swept up Austin Dillon, Daniel Suarez, Chris Buescher, Austin Hill, Riley Herbst, Zane Smith, John Hunter Nemechek, Eric Jones, Michael McDowell, and Connor Zilisch. 12 cars total. Half the field scrambling to avoid the wreckage in the span of a single corner. Hocevar somehow kept his car rolling. He stayed out, remained on the lead lap, and eventually crossed the finish line 17th. Wallace was credited with 36th, loaded onto the wrecker, and sent to the infield care center. That contrast alone tells the story of how badly this went for the number 23 team. Now here is where it gets interesting. The broadcast booth did not wait for a replay to form an opinion. Mike Joy flagged it immediately, suggesting something deliberate had happened before the footage even came back on screen. Clint Bowyer quickly agreed. "I think you're exactly right, Mike. You were all over that one. Watch this, Bubba Wallace, here we go, guys." When the replay aired, it confirmed what the booth already suspected. Kevin Harvick went further than anyone. "I'm telling you what, there's got to be more to that story. Because that right there. I mean, Bubba Wallace just drove flat through the 77 car, so I would assume there was something that happened before that for that type of aggression. He was mad." Bowyer added, "Yeah, it was definitely on purpose. That wasn't a big enough block to warrant that, though. There was more to that story, I agree with you." 3 veteran voices. 3 decades of combined Cup Series experience between them. And their verdict was unanimous. This was not a misjudgment. This was emotion overriding everything else in the car at the worst possible moment. After being released from the infield care center, Wallace spoke to reporters and gave his account. "I didn't appreciate the 3 wide into 1, and then I misjudged the center of the corner and didn't mean to turn him," Wallace said. He acknowledged the frustration with Hocevar's move but framed the contact as a mistake rather than a deliberate act. The replay, however, shows something different. The number 23 does not drift into the number 77. It targets it. The car straightens, throttles up, and drives directly through Hocevar with force. Harvick put it plainly on the broadcast. "I mean, I see him pull down the block right there. You see him just throttle up right there, and just drive right through him." That gap between what a driver says happened and what the footage clearly shows is exactly where the real story lives. And in NASCAR, that gap does not close quietly. What happened after the race said a great deal about where both drivers stood. Wallace reached out to Hocevar by text to apologize. According to Hocevar, Wallace told him he did nothing wrong and that he was just mad and was sent over the edge. Hocevar said he responded by laughing, because he knew he had not deserved what happened on the track. Wallace also addressed it publicly, saying he was 100% mad at himself for what happened at Martinsville. "I've got to tuck my tail and take it on the chin and move on. No one was happy about it," Wallace said. That is accountability. It is real and it matters. But accountability after the damage is done still leaves 12 teams with wreck sheet metal, missed points, and crew members working overtime to repair cars that should never have been in that wreck. Then came the voice that arguably carried the most weight of all. Denny Hamlin, co-owner of 2311 Racing and one of the most respected figures in the Cup garage, addressed the incident on his podcast Actions Detrimental the following Monday. Hamlin did not sugarcoat it. "I made of it that Bubba wrecked himself trying to knock Carson out of the way. He just didn't let up, kept driving in there, and eventually it caused him to wreck himself and others. That's my take." Hamlin also acknowledged what Hocevar did leading up to the incident. He called the 3-wide restart move a the move, while making clear it was not against the rules. "Carson says I'm going to go 3-wide on a restart at Martinsville to the bottom. It's not illegal, it's just a the move." That framing matters because it explains the context without excusing the response. Hocevar was driving aggressively. Wallace responded to aggression with something that went far beyond what the situation called for. And when your own co-owner says that on a public podcast, there is no spin left to apply. Now look at what this costs Wallace in terms of the actual 2026 season. Before Martinsville, he was running competitively and had a realistic shot at a top 20 result that would have kept him inside the top 7 in the standings entering the Easter break. Instead, the 36th place finish dropped him to 11th in points. In NASCAR's playoff format, that matters enormously. Wallace was not locked into the playoffs before this incident, and the points gap only widened because of a decision that took him out of a race he was still competing in. A potential top 20 finish became a season-worst result. That is not a footnote. That is the difference between staying in playoff contention and watching it slip away race by race. The garage will also remember this. In NASCAR, reputation at short tracks travels as fast as the cars. Martinsville is already the most physical oval on the schedule, a paperclip-shaped bowl where restarts feel like controlled demolitions and track position is worth more than horsepower. Every driver in that field now has updated information on how Bubba Wallace responds when he gets squeezed. That changes how people race him. It changes the decisions made in the moment when he is close on a restart. And that makes every future short track appearance more complicated for the number 23 team. Kyle Petty also weighed in with perspective that balanced the conversation. "A lot of people will see this and say, oh, it's Hocevar, he had that coming. But in this case, I don't think he had that coming." That is a significant statement from someone who has seen decades of short-track racing. It acknowledges the reputation Hocevar has built as an aggressive, edge-pushing competitor while still making clear that what happened on lap 327 was not a proportionate response. Going into the Easter break and then the next race at Bristol on April 12, two very different roads exist. In the best case, NASCAR reviews the tape and classifies the contact as a racing incident. No penalty lands. Both drivers use the week off to cool down. They show up at Bristol ready to race hard but within the limits. Wallace channels the frustration into better performance, strings together strong results, and quietly rebuilds his points position. The Martinsville incident becomes one more wild short-track story in a sport full of them. In the worst case, NASCAR decides the contact crossed a clear line and issues a points penalty, or a one-race suspension. That puts Wallace's playoff hopes in immediate and serious jeopardy. It compounds the damage already done at Martinsville. It adds tension between the number 23 and number 77 camps that does not go away at Bristol. That race becomes a grudge match, and every time these two cars get near each other on track for the rest of the season, the entire garage watches to see what happens next. Social media split hard on this one, and has not come back together. One side calls Wallace reckless and points to a pattern of costly on-track decisions this season. The other side defends the move as the natural product of Martinsville's intensity, arguing that 3-wide restarts at a track that tight leave almost no room for error, and that racing incidents happen. Analysts on radio shows are equally divided. Some want NASCAR to use this as a moment to set a standard and send a message. Others argue that policing emotion on short tracks has never worked, and that the sport should let drivers handle their own business. The honest answer is that Martinsville has always produced moments like this. Short track racing is emotional by design. Drivers are close together, speeds are lower but contact is harder, and tempers run hot because every position matters more. Zane Smith, Chris Buescher, Connor Zilisch and the rest of the drivers collected in that 12-car pileup did nothing to put themselves in that position. They were victims of a moment between two other drivers that escalated beyond what the situation required. In 2026, with the playoff format as demanding as it is and points this tight across the field, moments like this carry consequences that echo for months. Wallace knows that. He said so himself. He texted Hocevar the same day. He went on record saying he was 100% mad at himself. He acknowledged in plain terms that no one in the garage was happy with what happened. That level of ownership is not nothing. But the points are gone, the cars are wrecked, and the questions about his judgment on restarts are now louder than they have been all season. The next move belongs to NASCAR and to Wallace himself. What happens at Bristol will tell everyone in the garage a great deal about who Bubba Wallace is in the second half of this season. Drop your take in the comments. Was this a heat-of-the-moment mistake or something more? Like, share, and subscribe so you never miss a breakdown.